God would make you sensitive to the moments where he is asking you to put into action the thing that you have been trained for. We are missing the moment where we are supposed to move from training into deployment, where I get to put all of this that I have learned into action. You've been interceding and asking God for wisdom and strategy. He has been showing you who you are. And on this rock which is the revelation of you knowing who I am, I'm going to build my church. I will never accept defeat. I'm back in Matthew 16. At this point in the text, Peter and Jesus are having a dialogue, and Jesus is trying to assess whether or not Peter fully understands the magnitude of Jesus' identity. Do you understand that I am the Son of God, that I am the Messiah, the promised one? And Peter gives insight that he gets it. He gets it in a way that other people don't get it just yet. And as a result of him understanding who Jesus is, how that gives us confidence, he gives Peter insight in this moment. And I'm going to pick up in verse 18, where after he has revealed that he knows who Jesus is, and Jesus has told him, not only do you know who I am, but my Father revealed that to you. He goes on in verse 18 and he says to him, and I also say to you that you are Peter. And on this rock which is the revelation of you knowing who I am, I'm going to build my church. And the gates of Hades shall not prevail against this revelation. If you remember who I am, if you remember what you have access to, it doesn't matter what hell breaks loose around you, it will not prevail against you. If you really know who I am, not just talking about me, not just understanding my power, but you know who I am and who you can become as a result of who I am telling you that hell will not prevail against you. And I'm going to give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. And whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. And then he commanded his disciples that they should tell no one that he was Jesus the Christ. In the next scene of this text, it says that Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and tribes and be killed and be raised on the third day. Then Peter took him to the side. He began to rebuke him, saying, far be it from you, Lord, that this shall not happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Jesus says to Peter, get behind me, Satan. He went from being Peter, who he was going to use as a stone in building his church, to this person he's now calling Satan. Jesus says, what happened is you are an offense to me, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but of the things of men. Something happened in his mentality that shifted what was taking place. And I believe that God's going to make sure that we stay on the right side of what he's doing in the earth. I was doing some research on what is required when you enter into the military. When you are enlisting into service, you don't necessarily come in there ready for battle. You come in there with maybe the heart to serve. Maybe you come in there with the desire to have exposure, but you're not necessarily ready to be deployed on the day that you are enlisted. You go through a process, and in that process, you go from being whoever you were when you enlisted to a soldier. It starts with basic training. This is 8 to 12 weeks of physical training, of weapon training, where your mental toughness and obedience is put to the test, where you learn your warrior ethos. One of the U.S. military's warrior ethos says that I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit, and I will never leave a fallen comrade. That is the warrior ethos. Now, when they come into it, they may not even understand what it means to place the mission first. But it's once they go through this process that they begin to understand what it means. Their limits are tested. They learn what it means to never quit, to feel like you were at your breaking point, but to find strength because you looked beside you and someone else was pushing. These are not just men and women anymore. These are warriors. They then move into another type of training. This training is more individualized. It's more specific to whatever job they may have when they are on the mission field. It's advanced individual training or tech school. And then once you go from there, you then go into ongoing training, war games and leadership. All of this is in preparation for the moment in which you will be deployed. Lewis Simpson is a Pulitzer Prize winning poet, and he served in World War II. And he said this that I really want you to consider as we talk about what it means to be a part of the kingdom. Lewis Simpson said, the aim of military training is not just to prepare men for battle, but to make them long for it. They will be hungry to utilize the knowledge and the wisdom that they have experienced in training, because training is not supposed to be permanent. There ought to be a moment where you move from training into actualization, where you move from training into a situation that makes a demand on what you have been trained for. So many of us have been in training for so long that we are missing the moment where we are supposed to move from training into deployment. I'm not supposed to be studying forever. There should be some point where I begin to take a test, where I get to put all of this that I have learned into action. I'm not just prepared for it, I'm longing for it. Because there ought to be something in our spiritual journey and development where we go from just coming in and being trained and into a space that makes a demand on what we have been trained for. I am praying that God would make you sensitive to the moments where He is asking you to put into action the thing that you have been trained for. You've been praying, you've been fasting, you've been interceding and asking God for wisdom and strategy, and the Lord has been responding. He has been showing you who you are. He has been showing you what is possible in the earth. And I believe now, like never before, that some people in this room are entering into a season of deployment where you are about to put to work the things that God has been training you for. Not everyone's meant to be deployed, so this isn't everyone's word. I want to talk to some people who understand that they have been in process, but they understand that the season is now for me to take everything that I have learned, for me to take everything that I have been exposed to and begin to get aligned with some people who have also been trained and to step onto a battle that has my name on it. That's why that job, that's why that family, that's why that community, it wasn't meant to make you comfortable, it was meant to train you for the moment when I deploy you. That's why they had to turn their back on you. That's why you needed to be by yourself. That's why you needed to figure out how to work the money. It was a battle training for when I deploy you to the front lines. I got a battle with your name on it.